41.9% of adults in the US have obesity. Adults living with diabetes in the US has more than doubled in the last 2 decades. Scientists believe that in 2045, sperm count across the general population will hit 0, and 1 in 5 adolescents or young adults are diagnosed with depression. I'm Keni Della Serna, and this is Beyond the Nonsense with Keni.
Mission.
The stats stated at the beginning are alarming, but what's really concerning is that they seem to be pointing to an overall rapid decline of health in the US. But with medical advancements and new scientific discoveries coming out almost daily, why then do we seem to be regressing? Today, I want to explore with you our healthcare system and share with you why I believe it is so important for you to take health into your own hands. But before we get into that, because this is our first episode, I do want to mention the purpose and function of this podcast. Now, the purpose of this podcast is to arm you with the knowledge to make stronger, healthier decisions. And to do that, we will use this podcast as a playground to explore the research and discuss the science-based tools that could work for you. Now, I want to emphasize and repeat what I just said. We will be exploring the research. So I am by no means saying I am an expert in these topics, but I'm going to be reading research, reading books, and sharing with you what I am discovering in hopes that we can bring these alarming statistics down. I believe that the more people are informed, the more knowledge we have. Knowledge is power. So hopefully this will empower you to take back your health. Now, as an important note, my expertise lies in my opinions and my experiences. Should you decide to implement anything discussed within this podcast, my platforms, or my website, I strongly urge you to consult a medical professional before doing so. One really big reason for this is everyone's health needs are different. So what might work for me might not work for you. What works for you might not work for me. So it is very important for you to understand your needs and not go with what is the in thing to do or what everyone else is doing. All right. That being said, let's get to the good stuff. All right. So before we get into the flaws of our healthcare system, it's important to note the history of our healthcare. Now, we went from family doctors that visited families in the home, cared for you in the home, to the doctor's office. Now, I would like to note there's a big reason why that has changed our healthcare. A family doctor that would visit you in your house got to know your family, got to know who you were. They saw your environment. They saw what you ate. A lot of the time, those family doctors actually ate with the families that they were caring for. This allowed for a more specialized care for those families. They knew you. They knew what was going on with your life. They knew the stresses. That is so different from what's happening right now. Unfortunately, right now, we are seeing doctors with a lack of time with their patients. And this is for many reasons. According to a study in the Journal of American Medical Association, the average interaction between doctors and patients lasts 23 seconds. 23 seconds before a distraction. Another study found that doctors typically have between 7 to 13 minutes with their patient. 17 to 13 minutes with their patient, with an average time of a doctor spending about 5 minutes talking. About 5 minutes talking. That is wild to me. 5 minutes to discuss your health, explain anything that is going on with you, any new concerns you may have, discussing any medications they just prescribed you. 5 minutes. That's wild. That is very different from a family doctor sitting down and eating dinner with you. But unfortunately right now, doctors just have too many patients. We are seeing an alarming amount of doctors being overworked. The rate of burnout amongst doctors has risen over the past few decades. A report stated that 45.8%, almost half of the physicians in the US, were suffering from one or more symptoms of burnout. This includes depression, anxiety, being overworked, and also high rates of substance abuse. One doctor described it as feeling like he was on a hamster wheel. Experts stated that this will adversely affect patients, their care, and drive up costs, as sick people won't be effectively cared for. Now that leads me to an alarming study that was reported in the New England Journal of Medicine that stated and reported that only 55% of patients were receiving proper care. One reason for this that I think we're seeing is generalized healthcare. Okay, but what do I mean by generalized healthcare? Well, at the top, I stated how everyone's health needs are different. Well, unfortunately, with the abundance of research information that is out, it is very hard for doctors to go through those studies, to read those medical journals that have been published. And when a doctor goes through school, that 10 years, they're basically learning a general way to treat people. It has become impossible for practicing physicians to become current with the new research that is being put out. So along with generalized healthcare, we're also seeing a problem with medical specialization. Now, where medical specialization can be a good thing, I believe it's also a bad thing because specialization leads to only interests in a particular field of study rather than the human body as a whole. Now, why does that matter? Well, let me try to give you an example. Okay, bear with me. I don't know much about cars, but say your car is having problems with the battery. It's not charging the battery correctly. So what you do is you just fix the battery without looking at anything else in the car. So you're driving along and one day your car just stops working. But you're like, I fixed the battery. I thought everything was going to be fine. But what you failed to do was also look at the accelerator and see what the accelerator's health was when you looked at the battery. And what you could have found out in the beginning is that when your car wasn't charging the battery correctly, it was running on only your accelerator, and your accelerator then became exhausted and that died out. Its health went down in the process. But with only focusing on the battery, you didn't realize that. That's the same thing with our health. A lot of the time, doctors in these specialized fields only are trained to focus on what they know. Unfortunately, doctors focus on what they know so they don't have to think about the things that they don't know. This model of treatment only focuses on curing your symptoms rather than looking for a cause that started these symptoms. Now, doctors are trained to make a diagnosis. You come in with a problem and they have a solution. Now, this could get me in trouble, but insurance companies reimburse doctors only if they make a diagnosis. Let me say that again. Insurance companies reimburse doctors only if they make a diagnosis. That is wild. Insurance is paid when a diagnosis is made. If doctors can't write down a code number for a diagnosis, there's no reimbursement. A recommendation for nutritional changes or lifestyle management counseling or grief counseling or therapy for behavioral modification means no payment. No payment. So the way the healthcare system is set up right now, there's no enticement to promote wellness, to even discuss preventative measures. So what we're seeing is that the sicker the patient, the more the doctor makes. Now, who's to blame for this? Well, I wouldn't say we blame our doctors because, one, they lack the time that they need to look at these medical journals. They are being pushed to take more patients on at an alarming rate. And then what we haven't discussed yet is Big Pharma. So Big Pharma is, now we all know this, but Big Pharma pushes our doctors to also prescribe the medications that they want to make money off of. So large pharmaceutical companies only make money when a doctor prescribes their medication. So pharmaceutical companies will do everything in their power to make sure that that happens, from supporting medical journals with their ads to visiting doctors' offices and buying lunch for all the staff members, to buying their kids' toys and supporting seminars and going to fancy restaurants. They even, because doctors are required to continue their education, they even sponsor that education. So why then is this a bad thing if those medications have been proven to work? Well, a lot of the time, because of this pressure from the pharmaceutical companies to push their medications, doctors are unfortunately prescribing medication that is just not appropriate for their patients. A study published in the Archives of Internal Medicine showed that 69% of patients at the Harvard-affiliated Brigham and Women's Hospital were given cholesterol-lowering medications, such as statins, that were not appropriate for the candidates. Conversely, 88% of those with heart disease who qualified for that medication, for that therapy, didn't get prescribed that drug. That's wild to me. The number of unnecessary antibiotics prescribed annually is about 20 million per year. 20 million per year. Wow. Another problem with this is that many doctors just do not explore nutritional deficiencies or the side effects of these drugs that they are prescribing. A lot of the time, doctors will prescribe you a drug that has symptoms that happen afterwards that then you go in for and they prescribe you another drug. But again, the reason that doctors are doing this is because the drug companies, the insurance companies, and HMOs are pushing them so hard to do this. So HMOs are essentially watchdogs. They are health maintenance organizations. And these health maintenance organizations are more concerned with controlling costs than maintaining health. Now, an example of an HMO controlling costs over maintaining health is that if a doctor suspects a patient has high homocysteine levels, which is a potentially dangerous amino acid that affects the heart, causing heart attack, stroke, and lack of circulation to arms and legs, but the HMO won't allow a homocysteine test, the doctor must wait then for the patient to have a heart attack or stroke for the HMO to then pay for the test so the doctors can see if the patient is at risk for one. Now, how does that make any sense? I mean, HMOs make no allowance for preventative healthcare. So along with everything we've discussed, and we've discussed a lot from generalized healthcare to medical specialization to medical errors and big pharma and HMOs, one of the biggest things also that is hindering our medical advancement is the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. Now, there are an insane amount of bureaucratic roadblocks, so much so that they are calling this gap that separates what is being discovered in scientific settings from what actually makes it to patients the death valley. Now, there are many things that fuel this death valley and that cause this blockage. And one of them is high costs of conducting human efficacy trials. These high costs prevent smaller companies from being able to bring these maybe superior medications to market to these patients that are in doctor's offices. The sad thing is that there are so many roadblocks, bureaucratic roadblocks, that potentially effective therapies just aren't making it to market. And then when these effective therapies are approved by the FDA and do make it to market, the dilemma is that practicing physicians, again, don't have the time to learn about these therapies because there is an abundance of information being put out daily. Now, on top of that, mainstream doctors are failing to integrate natural approaches into conventional treatments, basically meaning that they're dismissing alternative medicine. Okay, we just discussed a lot of information about how our healthcare system is flawed, but what's really great is it presents a lot of opportunities here as well. But one thing I want to mention again is that I am by no means saying that doctors aren't needed. And I am by no means saying that you should blame your doctor for anything that has happened in your life. These doctors are put under an immense amount of pressure. And like we discussed, they just don't have the time to go through this research. And that is the reason for this podcast. I'm hoping that we can just go through those medical journals, through the research, and we can discuss those findings, the data that is coming out that these doctors just don't have time to go through. Then, hopefully, you are creating a meaningful relationship with your doctor. You are addressing the short amount of time you have with them, hoping that they will provide you more time, and then you are going to your doctor's office well informed. And you can sit there and have an intelligent conversation with them to create the best plan for you to tackle whatever you are going through medically, or to help you prevent anything from developing. That is the goal of this podcast, of this platform. But at the end of the day, your health is in your own hands. So if you don't take control of it, then it is going to control you. So knowledge is power. By having this information, it is empowering you to take control of your health. By focusing on preventative care, you are working to prevent diseases and illness from developing within your body. Not only that, you are also influencing the family members around you, the friends around you, to take control of their health. It is shown that if your partner is unhealthy, chances are you are unhealthy. So by changing your ways, by taking your health into your own hands, maybe you can help your family members do the same thing. All right, I hope I have not overwhelmed you with an abundance of information, and I look forward to our journey of learning more. Again, I'm Kennedy Della Serna, and this is Beyond the Nonsense with Keni. Thanks for watching. Be well.